Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome. This is the full prophetic build guide, inshallah ta'ala. In this video, I'm going to basically be going over what the prophetic build is, how to actually train for it, frequently asked questions, all this type of the most important things that you need to know about everything in terms of the prophetic build in detail, inshallah. It's going to be a long video. You can probably already see the time on this video. And there's going to be timestamps also for, so you can go back and stuff like that and see this in future reference. But this is going to be a long video. It's going to be very detailed. It's not going to be very fun, inshallah. So make sure if you're watching this that you don't have TikTok brain or anything like that. Inshallah, I'm going to be going over the important details. And let's get into it, I guess. Who am I in under 60 seconds? Let me try to make it very quick. My name is Ibn Muzammil. I've been training for almost 4 years now, alhamdulillah. Started off very, very skinny. Couldn't even do one pull-up. Alhamdulillah, I've gained over 30 pounds of muscle. Alhamdulillah, leaner than before even. Max, I think 2 months ago, I hit like 21 pull-ups. Alhamdulillah, like full, like all the way, like, I don't know, most people say like, this is one pull-up, whatever. No, I mean all the way, 21 pull-ups. Alhamdulillah, weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, other move exercises and stuff like that. If you want to know numbers, 115 pounds for 1 rep max for the dip, and then 85 for the pull-up. Alhamdulillah, 85 pounds. Handstand push-ups for reps, muscle-ups, Nordic curls, all this type of stuff, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, I made decent progress, but this is just the beginning of my journey, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, and so what is the prophetic build, actually? Like, what is the prophetic build? So the prophetic build is the term I like to use that means basically that we're trained to be like the Prophet ﷺ. Can you actually be like the Prophet ﷺ, though? Of course not, because he was the Prophet, and he was the best human man of all time, and he was given gifts, special gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that doesn't mean that we don't try to be like him. No, same way in terms of our deen. Just because he prayed sometimes he might have even prayed the whole entire night, or he prayed a long time in the night, doesn't mean that we just don't try to pray at night at all or anything like that. Rather, we try to be as close to him as much as possible. We try to take his example as much as possible. As Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ahzab, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, right? That in the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is a great example for you to follow, right? And so, okay, what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how was he actually kind of, I guess, built, if you want to say? What are we trying to achieve, right? So he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's described in a hadith as, subhanAllah, being well proportioned and well built, right? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was described as having broad shoulders and a broad chest, subhanAllah. His stomach didn't pass his chest, right? So he was also kind of, lean, right? He wasn't fat, right? So he had strong arms. He had even full calves, right? And he was also, I thought he used to race, so he beat the undefeated wrestler in all of Mecca, right? So he had physical ability. Even in a hadith of Al-Bara ibn Azib, he narrates that they used to take, what do you call it? They used to take protection behind the Prophet ﷺ when the battle got severe. So he was brave, ﷺ, right? A lot of hadith about this. If you want to know more about the description of the Prophet ﷺ, you can refer to Shama'il al-Tirmidhi, for those who want the sources and stuff like that. So the Prophet ﷺ, he had a holistic build, which is what I like to call the prophetic build. And why should we train for it? Because he ﷺ is the role model. Allah says in Surah Al-Imran, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبُكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah says to the Prophet, say to them, right, ﷺ, that if you really love Allah, then follow me, right? He's the example, right? ﷺ. He also says, "Al-mu'minu al-qawi khayrun wa ahabbun ila Allah min al-mu'min al-da'if," right? Wa fi kulli khayr, right? And the strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer. And obviously, this is number one. Most importantly, this is firstly in terms of iman, right? And it's most important for us to try to follow him in terms of iman and be strong in our iman like him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But nevertheless, this definitely also includes physical strength, right? We learn from the Sahaba, the examples of the Sahaba, Umar, Ali, radiallahu anhu, right? All of these, Khalid bin Walid, Hamza, radiallahu anhu, right? All these Sahaba, a lot of the Sahaba were very strong. Even the Sahaba, they had to fight in the battles, right? They're with the Prophet ﷺ fighting. So they had to be in physical shape to even fight for the cause of Islam, right? So that is why we should train for the prophetic build. And so what are the pillars of the prophetic build, right? So the prophetic build, I kind of divide it into 3 different pillars right here. Hopefully you kind of like my drawings. And then also there's like a base, right? So the first one, we'll go over all these in detail, but the first one being strength, second one being cardio, and the third being combat, right? And the fourth and the base right here, like, that everything has to kind of lie on is what I call like bulletproofing or mobility, or basically being pain free and protecting yourself from that. We'll go into more detail, inshallah. Ta'ala. So the first pillar of the prophetic build is strength. So for this pillar, like I put strength, but this also kind of includes like muscle and stuff like that. But let's go over strength. So strength, there's basically, to make this simple, there are kind of two types of strength, right? There's what you call relative strength and what you call absolute strength. So I guess which one should we kind of be trying to train for, or both, or whatever? What are we trying to do, right? Relative strength, and also actually let me explain the difference between the two. Relative strength is basically saying how strong am I for how much weight I am, right? So if I'm like very, big, I should be just as strong as how big I am, right? Absolute strength is more like how much numbers I can lift up. Let me try to make this more simple. So absolute strength is saying, oh, okay, I can squat 500 pounds. That's your absolute strength, right? Relative strength would be, oh, I can squat 2 times my body weight, right? So it's relative to yourself, right? That's the difference between the two, right? And so I guess which one should we try to be kind of training more for? Probably you should be training for the relative strength. Why? Because when you train for more relative, kind of almost like functional kind of strength, that, first of all, it does apply to your absolute strength. And also it makes sure that you're more balanced, right? When you're training for more absolute strength, that means it's best for you to like be very heavy and be very big, and I guess fat and bloated, so you can lift as much weight as possible. But that's not the goal. The goal is to be strong in terms of relative to yourself, right? Have more functional strength, because he saw him, as we said right here, he was balanced, right? He was balanced in his physique, right? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so what exercises do you have to do to actually get like strong? Like, do I have to go to the gym and do bench press or squat, or do I do pull-ups, or what? Like, what do I have to actually do to get strong, right? And I also like to split this into you can say 4 different parts. So we can say pushing strength, right? We can say pull strength, leg strength, and core. Right there, make this simple, right? Push, pull, legs, core, right? Pushing strength, you want to pick, like a compound exercises. Actually, this is like a key point right here. If you want to remember something important for this strength part, and maybe the whole entire even guide, compounds over isolations. Why? Because, like we said, the Prophet said he was he was well proportioned, right? When you take isolations, right? When you focus a lot on isolations instead of like compound movements, right? Compound movements being like full body movements, or like movements that include multiple muscle groups, right? Like a pull-up includes your back and your biceps, right? And a lot of other stuff, right? A bicep curl is just including only the bicep, right? When you pick like a bicep curl over a pull-up, you're focusing more only on, your bicep, right? And that can lead to, like, if you excessively do that, imbalances. And now you're not proportional, right? When you focus on the compounds, then you naturally build a proportional holistic build, right? So doing that. And I'm not saying isolations you shouldn't do them at all. Maybe like at some point, like when you have been training for a couple of years or something like that, when you're more advanced, then you can start to do a little bit more isolations once you can see like, oh, okay, I'm very weak here and here. Like I've been missing these parts of my compound movements didn't get this part or this part. But the main thing you should be focusing on is the compounds. That's like the 80% almost. And then the last like 10-20% is going to be those isolations. So for here, pushing strength, focus on things like, if you're a beginner, push-ups, proper push-ups, going, for example, all the way nose to ground, and then locking out all the way at the top, right? And then going to dips, once you are able to, even going weighted. Handstand push-ups on the wall, for the shoulder strength. He was, wide shoulders, right? You want to focus on the shoulders also, because that was like a sign of strength almost. Pull-ups are basically the king of, pulling strength, right? You want to get to being able to do pull-ups, subhanAllah. Being able to do pull-ups, and also weighted pull-ups, right? This will get you your back and your biceps like very, very strong, and also, like I said, holistic, like the Prophet ﷺ, when you train those compound movements. And also because you're handling your own body weight. So it's not like you're super strong and now you can't handle your own body weight. You're handling your own body weight, and even with additional weight, right? So you're gaining muscle and strength. That's why, these movements are really good. Legs, it depends on if you have equipment or no equipment and stuff like that. If you do have gym equipment, then obviously barbell squats and also going all the way deep is probably the king of like the leg exercises. Even considered a weighted calisthenics movement, if you want to call it, because you're doing your body weight plus obviously weight. Make sure you go all the way down, please, like, so you actually strengthen the bottom range of motion. You're getting the full range of motion, right? Full range of motion only for the squats. You can do other movements too, other compound movements like deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, RDLs, what do you call it? Body weight, if you want to do like pistol squats, you can do for more, let's see, single leg is more intense. You can do reverse Nordic curls. Those are like two like really good ones, especially at home you can do, among other leg exercises, inshallah. And then core, I would say mainly focus on the hollow body hold, right? The hollow body hold is basically, you can search it up on like YouTube. You can find a video about it. Hollow body hold, really good. And then also doing, eventually leading up to dragon flags, right? For more advanced core. Then you can also do like leg raises if you want to do more dynamic movement. But that's kind of more like secondary movement. Okay, and so for these exercises, you want to also make sure that you're going in more intense, right? You're pushing, close to or to failure, right? And you're actually going intense with the exercises, and then you're also doing less volume. The volume actually doesn't really matter as much. The intensity matters more, inshallah. But I'll go into more detail, inshallah, in the programming part of this video. You'll see it in the chapters, inshallah ta'ala. So pillar number two is cardio, right? So cardio, I like to split it up into two categories. Number one being, I guess, short distance, then long distance. So short distance, obviously, like sprints, like you're all out, sprinting and running. Cardio and longer distance would probably be like the other one, and it would be like one. It doesn't have to be like super like a marathon or anything like that, but like you're going 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles. Like you're going longer than just like a couple minutes, a couple seconds sprint, right? So let's go one by one. So in terms of sprints, so for sprints, what you want to do is basically, to make this very simple, for sprints, you want to do 5 sets of 8 to 12 seconds, all out. Right? So you're going all out, and then you're going to rest for 1 to 2 minutes. Right here, can you see that? Right there. So this is what you're going to do for sprints. Very basic if you want to do that. 5 sets of 8 to 12 seconds, 1 to 2 minute rest. Sprints are really good. They're literally like a workout. Like I feel like you'll feel like your hip flexors sore like the next day and stuff like that. You're going all out, like you feel dead, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he used to race, he used to race, other Sahaba and his Aisha radiallahu anha, right? Even the Sahaba used to race, right? So sprinting is very important. There's a lot of benefits for sprinting and stuff like that. Even scientific nowadays, you can kind of research yourself. Also, sprinting is very, very important, right? So make sure you're doing it at least once a week, and we'll go over more about this in detail in the programming section also. So that's for sprints. And then for longer distance running, I'm not going to type that, but just like longer distance running, making sure, you're running, like a longer distance, right? So I'll basically give, like, if you want a basic, a basic, like, okay, what should I do? Like, I'm pretty basic in terms of running. I haven't done cardio like that. What you can do is, you can start off with running for 1 minute. You run. So 1 minute run. And then you take 1 minute and you walk. And then you do 1 minute run. So like kind of like an interval almost, right? You kind of do this, and you'll do it until you'll take this and you'll keep on doing it. You'll do 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. You can keep on going until you do like 5 to 10 sets or something like that. And then you can slowly go up to 2 minutes running and then 1 minute off, right? That's like a basic one, for example. What you can also do is just run a mile, without stopping. You can set a distance and take breaks accordingly. You can do like a lot of different things. You can be like a little creative with the running, but if you want something really basic, you can do interval. So like 1 to 1, and then 2 to 1, and then 3 to 1, and then 5 to 1, 5 minutes running, 1 minute rest and stuff like that. You can make it less rest, more running. You can play around with it, right? But basically you can do kind of those types of things for cardio, for longer distance, right? Because you want to be able to, like, if you're human and you can't even run, it's probably like you don't have any cardiovascular health, like, because cardiovascular is like for your heart, right? It's probably like most of the benefits actually from like working out and stuff like that are from like cardio in terms of like your heart health and stuff like that. So make sure that you're actually doing cardio. Most people skip it. Cardio kills gains, whatever. Obviously, it's like not really true, and stuff like that. But make sure that you're not just like you're only strength training for muscle and strength and stuff like that, but you're also training, you're doing the cardio, right, for your actual cardiovascular health. You're able to run. The last thing you want to be is a bodybuilder that can't go upstairs without gasping for air like it's Yawm al-Qiyamah. SubhanAllah, right? And pillar number 3 is combat, right? You need to learn how to fight, SubhanAllah, right? You need to learn how to fight, you need to learn how to be dangerous, and you need to learn how to protect, right? Allah says in the Quran, Surah An-Nisa, الرجال قوامون على النساء, right? Men are the protectors and the providers, and they're responsible for women, right? So like what purpose is a man who can't even protect, SubhanAllah? Like what purpose are you if you can't even protect your women folks, SubhanAllah, right? So you need to be able to protect. The Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba, they used to fight back then, obviously against the kuffar, right? So you need to learn how to fight and protect, SubhanAllah, right? Mainly you can learn a martial art. So, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, stuff like this, right? You can learn, stuff like that. That's really good, and I would recommend everyone to learn at least one of them at a basic level, so you can protect yourself, in when the time comes. Also, what's also important, it depends on where you live and stuff like that, how old you are, and like your laws and stuff like that. But also, it's very important. Guns are probably like the most deadly weapon now, right? Important if you're able to, especially if you live in like America, for example, kind of like me. Learning how to shoot, once you're at age and you can all that type of stuff, learning how to protect yourself. You need to learn how to protect yourself. I can't say it enough, subhanAllah, right? But anyways, mainly though, the reason I say martial arts is because you can learn that obviously anywhere in the world. Which martial art should you actually do though? Oh, should you do wrestling because the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba used to wrestle, or should I do boxing because striking I heard is really good? Short answer, just pick one that you like and that you will stick with. Right, and that you'll actually get good at. So, and also that you have access to. Like, for example, if you had a Muay Thai gym next to you and you really want to do Muay Thai, then do Muay Thai. I'm not going to tell you to do something else if that's right next to your house and you want to do that, right? If you just pick whichever one you want, right? That you actually stick with, because all of them are good. They all have their pros and their cons and stuff like that. But it's just about, staying consistent and sticking with it and learning the skill. And you can learn multiple also. You can learn multiple. You don't have to pick one and stick with that only. You can learn multiple, right? It's, good to be a master of different trades, you could say, right? But, if you do want to actually, okay, I have multiple options. I'm down to do anything. I just want to be the most dangerous as possible. If you do want a general rule, I would personally say to have one striking and one grappling. That's a pretty basic thing. So basically, do one thing that you practice striking. So striking is basically like a punch or kick or something like that, right? Basically, quick contact times, you're hitting someone almost like with your hand or elbow, whatever it is, right? It's like quick strikes, right? And then grappling is more like wrestling and dragging and all this type of like long contact times, right? So striking would be like boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. Grappling would be like jiu-jitsu, wrestling, judo, and stuff like that. So if you do want, you can learn one of each. That would be a pretty good baseline. But nevertheless, just learn at least one, or just learn one. And also, by the way, if you don't have if you can't, for example, go to a gym and learn it, you have no equipment, okay, what should I actually do? Two things you can mainly do if you really don't have equipment, you don't have a teacher or anything like that. Number one, just wrestle your friend or your brother, right? / friend. Wrestle someone at the masjid, right? Wrestle someone in the grass, whatever it may be, right? Just wrestle anybody, right? It's probably just make some friends and wrestle, right? That's actually literally what the Sahaba did. They literally just wrestled each other. They didn't go to some gym and learn and stuff like that. They would just wrestle. And how many people do you know, subhanAllah, that they're actually just naturally good at wrestling, with their friends, whatever, just because they used to wrestle as a kid. Right, they just wrestled their friends, right? So number one, you can just wrestle your friend, your brother, whatever it is, right? And then number two, you can also, I have a friend who did this, which is you can learn how to what do you call it, shadow box, right? Shadow boxing, if you don't know, is when you're imagining, you're visualizing the enemies in front of you, and you're practicing how to punch and movements and stuff like that. I don't know how to shadow box, but a lot of people learn how to shadow box and stuff like that. You learn the movements and stuff. Really good if you want to learn by yourself. You can look on YouTube or online and stuff like that and learn by yourself. These are mainly the two things that you can do if you don't really have much equipment or teacher or whatever it may be. So you can do that. Okay, and now for the base thing that I kind of talk about, which I call bulletproofing, or you call it injury proofing, mobility, whatever you want to call it. There's a bunch of different names. Basically, what this is number one, alleviating yourself from like pain and injuries and stuff like that. Because what good is like how are you going to even like strength train if you're feeling pain? How are you gonna run if you're feeling like shin splints or knee pain or whatever, right? How are you gonna fight if you're in pain, right? What good is a body if you can't even function properly without pain? Pain is like literally the sign that your body isn't functioning well. So that's why, firstly, improving fixing kind of your pains and stuff like that, finding the root cause of it, and addressing that, and then also even if you don't feel any pain or anything like that, protecting yourself from the pain in the future, right? The best the best cure is prevention, right? Prevention over the cure, as what they say. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran or in the Deen, He makes something haram, right, from the root, right? Not like, He tries to stop everything from the root, right? He says don't come close to zina at all, right? Because you don't want to even get close to it. He stops from the root, right? So prevention is better. So what is actually bulletproofing? How do you actually bulletproof? So number one, you need to understand like the root cause of most of these problems and pains and stuff like that. Like if you have like back pain or knee pain, whatever it is, you have to, you have really tight hamstrings. It's probably you can't even make ruku' properly, right? In the salah, like you're supposed to be like fully like flat like this, like your legs are supposed to be straight and your back is supposed to be straight, but you're like this, or your knees are bent or whatever it may be, right? Because your hamstrings are so tight, because you're sitting all the time, right? Nowadays, in modern lifestyle, we sit all the time, right? So what do we have to do? We need to do something about the sitting, right? So even we have to sit, but we have to do something to address the sitting, for all that, to compensate, right? So after sitting for a long time, going on a walk, stretching out the hamstrings and all that type of stuff, strengthening the hamstrings in that lengthened position also, because that's the key point. In terms of like all the stretching and stuff like that, what you want to do is what do you call weighted stretching, right? And I'll go over this and I'll give you some exercises and examples and stuff like that. But basically, weighted stretching is that it makes it so that the mobility and the mobility that you get from like stretching, you actually keep it, right? Because once you're building muscle and strength in that range of motion almost, right? So if you just like stretch your hamstring, If you just stretch your hamstring like with your body weight and you just like holding the stretch, that's good and you'll open it up, but it will just get right back tight very quickly. But if you strengthen that range of motion, then the strength will kind of hold that range of motion more than if you just had only the mobility. And so you want to take this concept and apply it to all the different like parts of your body and stuff like that, making sure that you're working in full ranges of motion in all of your exercises, like pull-ups, right? You're going all the way down and all the way up, right? Like if you're doing shoulder press with dumbbells, for example, or bench press, whatever, going all the way down, right? Handstand push-ups, even trying to go deficit eventually, right, to get full range of motion. Push-ups, going full range of motion, dips, and all that type of stuff. Squats, right? Instead of half repping and just like cooking yourself, right? Especially for squats, for example, like. As Muslims, like we pray, 5 times a day. We go all the way down to sujood, right? And we go to like a full knee bend, right? We go to a full knee bend in like salah, like every single day, right? We should try to strengthen that so that when we're older, subhanAllah, we can actually make sujood, right? Because subhanAllah, like a lot of if you go to any masjid in the world, subhanAllah, right? There's always a lot of chairs, subhanAllah, for a lot of the uncles to sit down. Why? May Allah alleviate them, from their, from the pains and stuff like that. But it's because like a lot of them, some of them might have like health conditions and stuff like that, and that's fair enough, right? But the vast majority, they just, because of modern lifestyle, it cooked them, and subhanAllah, like they didn't know about taking care of their own body, right? It just kind of just left, right? The Prophet ﷺ actually, he said in the hadith, he says 2 blessings, subhanAllah, that most people take for granted. They just leave them, subhanAllah, right? Which is their health and their free time. SubhanAllah, their health and their free time, right? Your health, you think like you have it until like one day it's just like slowly deteriorating, and then one day you see it, you look back, and you're like, wait, why am I feeling so much pain here now, right? Why can't I even pray, right? It just slowly goes down, subhanAllah, right? So it's important for you to take care of this type of stuff, weighted stretching, in terms of like making sure you're mobile and stretching, stuff like that. I'll just give a quick one in terms of, for the hamstrings, because I talked about the hamstrings. For me personally, actually, I'll tell you, I actually couldn't do sujood, or what do you call it, ruku' straight a couple years ago, right? I couldn't do ruku' fully straight because my hamstrings were so tight. SubhanAllah. But what I did was I did an exercise. It's called, you can search this up online, a Jefferson curl. Like actually more like a stretch, right? So I basically, you can search up the video on the thingy. Maybe I might put it in the description. Probably not, honestly. But you can search up Jefferson curl. This is an example of a weighted stretch, right? You're basically going deep into a stretch, and the weight is kind of sinking you in, right? You do this for other things, for your hip flexors, for your even strengthening your shoulder, your rotator cuff, and stuff like that. Making sure like all of the parts of your body are balanced. SubhanAllah. This is basically bulletproofing. And by the way, this can be a lot more like difficult and not as simple as like the other ones, because like for here I can say, okay, just do push-ups, 2 sets of whatever. I can say cardio, sprint once a week, and do this and this and this. And then combat, you just learn how to like wrestle your friend. But for bulletproofing and like for like injury prevention and stuff like that, it's hard because everyone is very different. Like everyone has different pains and different causes and stuff like that, right? So for this one, if you do want, I think in the link in the description of this video, inshallah, you can try to book a call with me, and we can talk about your situation a little bit more, and I can try to give you some steps in terms of helping you with in terms of your strength and like where you need to I guess bulletproof. But let's go on to the 3 pillars of health, right? So basically what I just went over was kind of the first pillar, right, which is exercise, right? I went over, what do you call it? Oopsies, where am I? I went over, strength, what you should do for strength and muscle training, right? Cardio, combat, all this type of stuff. All of that was basically the exercise portion of it. But the other 2 pillars of health, right? If you want to take care of your health before your sickness, as the Prophet said, nutrition and your sleep, right? So let's go over nutrition, inshallah. Okay, in terms of nutrition, there's basically 2 main things that we learn from the Sunnah and from the Quran also, right? So first of all, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says many times in the Quran, I'll quote from Surah Al-Ma'idah, for example, He says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَكُلُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا, right? He says, eat from what Allah has provided for you, halalan طيبًا. He says, eat, halal foods, what we've provided for you from the halal, right? Obviously, that's permissible, and tayyib, right? Not just halal, but also tayyib. Tayyib means, good and pure, right? Foods that are good for you, and foods that are also pure, right? So maybe like, a Kit Kat might be halal, right? The ingredients, there's no pork or no gelatin, or whatever it is, right? But, is it tayyib? Is it good for you? Is it fueling you, right? You should eat foods that are also, you should make sure your food is also tayyib. Make sure your food is also good for you and fueling you, right? As Allah says in the Quran, right? Right? And also number 2, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, the famous hadith, which is that the son of Adam does not fill a vessel worse than his stomach. SubhanAllah, right? No vessel that is worse than his stomach, right? And he says it's enough for him to just, eat a couple bites and he'll be fine. And if he must, then let him, eat 1/3, have 1/3 for food, 1/3 for water, and 1/3 for air, right? So he teaches us balance in terms of, nutrition, right? You shouldn't overeat, right? Eat however much you need. Eat for fuel and not for pleasure. And so basically, you want to eat whole foods, right? You want to eat really good foods, whole foods that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gave us and gifted us, right? You want to eat, like meat, He gave us animals, to eat. You want to eat, eggs, bread, right? Whole foods and stuff like that. Clean foods. And actually, at the time of recording this video, I'm going to very soon, inshallah, make a video about the Prophet ﷺ's diet, right? And I'll go over like specific foods that he ﷺ ate, right? And some examples that we can take. But for mainly, like if you just mainly want to know, you want to be eating, whole foods, right? Not like a bunch of processed foods and like Red 40 and like garbage, subhanAllah, right? And like Desitos and stuff like that. You want to eat, whole, nutritious, halal and tayyib foods. Also, bonus tip in terms of nutrition. Obviously, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to fast routinely. As Muslims, obviously, fast Ramadan, but he would also fast terms in, for example, the Mondays and Thursdays, right? He would fast Mondays and Thursdays. He would fast even like the 3 middle days of the month, the Islamic month, right? The 3 white days, if you know that, right? He would fast, and fasting, even nowadays, all of a lot of these, doctors and scientists, whatever, are like saying like, oh, the benefits of fasting and stuff like that. How much of a like a reset it is for like your whole body almost, right? So, fasting is also really good if you're able to, inshallah ta'ala. And then going over sleep. So sleep is very important. It's your body's, way of like your main rest of your body is sleep. Subhanallah. Right? Your sleep is the number one like recovery of your body. SubhanAllah. Allah says in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ سُبَاتًا. Right? We made the night like a means for you to rest and for you to cut off from everything else. وَجَعَلَ اللَّيْلَ سَكَنًا. Right? He made the night for you to rest. SubhanAllah. Right? Sleep is your number one way of resting. SubhanAllah. And actually, one interesting thing I want to go over this hadith. SubhanAllah. Right? Is this hadith in Bukhari. Let me open it up right here actually. So right here in Bukhari. 3,420, right? I want to actually go over this. This is actually very interesting, subhanAllah, which is Abdullah bin Amr, he narrated, the Messenger of Allah said to me, the most beloved of fasting to Allah was the fasting of Dawood alayhi salam, and he would fast on alternative days, right? So he'd fast Monday, and then Tuesday he would eat, and then Wednesday fast, then Thursday eat, right? Like, so alternative days, right? Easy. And the most beloved prayer to Allah was the prayer of Dawood, right? Who used to sleep for the first half. Right? So he would sleep for the first half of the night. Then he would pray for a third of it, right? And then again he would sleep for a sixth of it. So I want to go over this math actually. So he said half, a third, and a sixth. So right here, let's write it down. So we have he would sleep for half the night. And let's put 3/6 just to make it easy, right? 3/6 is half. And then we have, he would pray for 1/3, which is 2/6, right? If you know math, hopefully. And then lastly, he would sleep again for, 1/6, right? That's the whole night. 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 6. Okay? So he would pray for 1/3, sleep for 1/2, and then, sleep for another 1/6. Okay? So 3 plus 1, he would sleep for about, in total, 4/6 of the night. Obviously, it's not exact, like 1 minute by minute or whatever, but on average, like around 4/6 of the night, which is 2/3, right? If you want to just round it down. And so, how long? Okay, how long is this actually in terms of like hours and time and stuff like that? So, the average night, like worldwide and throughout all seasons, like if you average it out, is around 12 hours, right? Obviously, it depends on like where you are geographically, like in the world, globally, and also the season, if it's winter versus summer and all this type of stuff. But on average, it will be around 12 hours, right, for most people, right? 12 hours. And if we take 12 hours, take 2/3 of 12 hours, because it would be around, 2/3, right? 2/3 of 12 hours is 8 hours, right? 8 hours, around, right? Around 8 hours, right? So, if you do, and this is, subhanAllah, like the most beloved of prayers, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hadith in Bukhari right now, right? So, sleeping around 8, like you should try to sleep around 8 hours. It can be a little bit less, it could be a little bit more. It depends on the season, depends on where you are, obviously. But try to get good sleep, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he would sleep right after Isha, right? He would sleep right after Isha, so he can wake up for Qiyam al-Layl, right? Nowadays, what do? We do Qiyam al-Layl in the first night of half the night, meaning we don't go to sleep until like 12 a.m. And then, subhanAllah, we barely wake up for Fajr. Even if we do wake up for Fajr, right? SubhanAllah, right? If you just sleep right after Isha, because that's what he would do, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't even like to, subhanAllah, talk after Isha. He didn't even like to talk after Isha. Let him go alone, like scrolling, so obviously he couldn't scroll, he didn't have phones or whatever. But, obviously he wouldn't, definitely not scroll, right? He didn't even like talking, right? He would just spend time with his family a little bit and then go to sleep, right? Sleep right after Isha, right? So that you can actually get quality time to sleep. Wake up, nice and early for Fajr. And even, in the middle of the night, if you can get up and pray for a little bit, and then go back to sleep and wake up. That is what Dawood alayhi salam used to do. Okay, and so I talked about, for example, I talked about strength, I talked about cardio, combat, all this type of stuff, like bulletproofing even. How do I actually make this into a program? Like, how do I program this, right? So this is what I'm going to go over right here. Sorry. So how should my workout look? So firstly and foremostly, in terms of your strength and muscle training, you should train for, what I found is best is around 3 to 4 times a week is perfect. 3 to 4 times a week. Most people try to go for like 6 times a week and push pull legs or all this type of stuff. I've found actually that 3 to 4 times a week is actually way better for a lot of reasons, and I'm going to go over some of them right now. So number one, you focus more on the intensity rather than the volume, and the intensity is actually more important than the volume, right? And also this makes your workouts shorter. First of all, this makes your workouts shorter, so you can be more consistent in it, because that's actually the number one reason why most people kind of fail, but I'll get to that later on, inshallah. And also, when you work out 3 to 4 times a week, you give yourself ample amount of rest between the workouts, and your numbers go up higher, right? So it's like win-win-win situations, right? So it's easier to stay consistent. You get more bang out of your buck, like more quality, right? It's basically like win-win-win situation when you train for 3 or 4 times a week, more intensity rather than like 6 times a week with more volume and taking so much more time in the gym and stuff like that. And like also like our lives, we're not like bodybuilders, bro. Like we have a life, bro. We're Muslims, right? We're supposed to be balanced, right? Our life isn't training. You don't have to be in the gym or like working out for like so many hours in a week, right? It should be very like minimal, like however much you need, right? You don't want to spend your whole life in the gym, right? You have a life elsewhere. You memorizing Quran, working, whatever it may be, right? Spending time with your family, right? You don't have to spend so much time in the gym, right? And you get even more progress when you train less, but more intense and smarter, inshallah. So that's for strength. Cardio, I think I already said this. Do once a week for once a week if it's either sprinting or the longer distance, like a mile, whatever it is. I would say do at least once a week and pick one of them. So you can do sprints, or you can do long distance. You can alternate between weeks. If you want bonus points, I would say do both. Do like once, so you'll do twice a week. So you do once sprinting and once longer distance in a week, right? So it'll be 2 times a week. That's bonus points. But at least just do once a week in terms of one of them, and you can ideally alternate. And then for combat, I would say obviously like just learn from your teacher, however many times a week it is. But at the very least, I would say try to do it like once a week at the very least, like once a week with your friend or brother or whatever. Once a week shadowbox, whatever it may be. Obviously shadowboxing you can do it at home, so it'll be a lot. You can do it more in the week than just once. But that's kind of the main thing. And then bulletproofing, I would say this one you have a lot of options. So number one, you can either just do it with your normal strength workout, right? You can do it in the beginning or the end. Number two, you can try to you can do daily, and this is kind of what I would. It depends on your situation more. So you would have to know more about your situation to kind of see. But if it's something like, for example, you have neck pain, like on your daily activity, like in daily life, you have neck pain, I would say to just do it like consistently in your routine, like before you go to sleep or before you wake, like once you wake up, just consistently, right? That would kind of fit into your life more and stuff like that. It really depends on like the different, like what you're actually doing and stuff like that. So this is a lot more personal, right? So just to recap over, strength, 3 to 4 times a week. Ideally, like around 3 to 4 times a week. You get more intensity, you get more reward. Actually, like, I was talking to I made a program for my friend, right? Or I was giving my friend some advice, and I told him, go lower in your volume, higher in your intensity, and let me read you out the text message, what he said. He said that. Give me like 2 seconds. He said, let me read this. I asked him for an update for his training, and he said, "Wa alaikum salam. It's going well. My numbers are going up a lot quicker than I thought, which is good, subhanAllah. His numbers are going up way like faster than he thought, subhanAllah. But I'm finding myself often unfulfilled after finishing an exercise. Like even though I'm taking both sets to absolute failure, I still feel like, and I want to, give more to the exercise. If that makes sense. He literally feels lazy in his workouts and he's doing more, right? Obviously, like we can fix that and stuff like that, but you know, he's training so like lazy, so smart, and he's getting so much like results, right? Um, and if that's, I guess, a problem you want to have, then Layup, that's really good, bro. But yeah, training less, more intensity, right? Cardio once a week, at least. Bonus for 2 times a week. Combat at least once a week. Bulletproofing, depends. Okay, then also two more things I forgot to mention about programming. Number one, make sure you rest adequately between what we call it, adequately between sets, right? Making sure you're actually going to be able to push to like failure and like push to your actual max in your workouts, right? So make sure you're actually resting adequately in your workouts. Number two, also, like, you know, resting between like the workout days, right? So that's obviously comes from, you know, when you train 3 to 4 times a week, you're resting basically in between each exercise, between each day, right? Or you're doing something completely different. Also, you can do, this is a side point, you can do like an active rest kind of. So like you do miscellaneous type of stuff between the workouts. But I'd be a little bit cautious, especially if you struggle with consistency. Most people struggle with consistency, subhanAllah, right? And if you're struggling with consistency, I would not add in like an active rest or extra stuff in miscellaneous in terms of your, what do you call it? Your program, because then it just makes your program harder, and you won't like longer, and you won't be able to stay consistent with it, right? You want to start off at the base level, right? That's actually a main point. You want to start off with the base level of like your program, right? You should always be training and always be taking care of your health, but it doesn't have to be like, you know, an hour a day, 6 days a week, right? Start off with something that you can do, even if it's a little bit. Actually, I'll tell you a quick story. I won't tell you the whole story, but basically, before I used to train, I would do push-ups. What do you call it? Every night before I go to sleep, right? So 2 sets of like max push-ups. So it couldn't take more than like 5 minutes, right? And I recorded these. I still have these videos on my computer. And subhanAllah, I got so much results in just 2 months. I think I look at my bench, like before I actually benched, like I went with like my brother's friend, and like I failed on 85 pounds, right, on the bench press, right? And then so I did push-ups every single night. 2 months later, I literally hit 135 pounds, and I never touched a bench, right? Just doing some like trash form push-ups, like just like this and stuff like that. Failure twice a, what do you call it? Twice every night, right? Because I was consistent, right? I did such a little bit, like what, 5 minutes times 7 days a week is 35 minutes a week, right? And I went up that much. Obviously, I was like a newbie gains and stuff like that. But you get the point. Like if you're just consistent with something, then you will get results in it, even if it's like a kind of like a trash kind of program. So consistency is the most important part of your thing. So make sure that you're doing something. And actually, the point I wanted to say was that when I did make this plan, I remember making it. I thought to myself, like, okay, what is something I can do, even if I'm lazy? Even if I'm lazy, what can I do, right? And I thought, okay, 2 sets of push-ups every night, and I did it, and I stuck to it, and I did it every single night without exception. Subhanallah, never skipped, right? Subhanallah, and that's how I got progress. Okay, so why do most guys not get results? Subhanallah. Two main things, I'd say. Two main things. The first one is actually more main, and I already said this, which is consistency. Consistency is the biggest reason why most people don't get results. I told you that I got results with like just some trash form push-ups, right? Just because I was consistent, right? Everyone knows what they need to do. Everyone knows like, oh, okay, if you do push-ups, you'll get strong, and pull-ups and squats and run and all this type of stuff, and learn how to fight. Everyone knows, right? Same way in terms of like our deen. Everyone knows, oh, to become a better Muslim, I need to, you know, learn more about Islam. I need to learn more about my deen. Read the Quran more. You know, pray salah on the time with khushur, etc., etc., etc. Go to the masjid more. Everything, dhikr, everything, right? Everyone knows this stuff, but no one does it. No one even stays consistent with it, right? So this is the main thing in terms of getting results. Basically in terms of everything almost, but especially in terms of training, it is consistency. And how do you fix consistency? This is like the biggest problem that I get, like that people tell me about all the time, and this is by far the number one problem in even the world in terms of consistency, which is, you know, how do you actually, you know, solve consistency? How do you actually address it? Two things. Number one, or what is the reasons? I mean, like, what are the two reasons why people aren't consistent? Number one, it is because their program, and also, by the way, it can be both of these two. It can be one, the other, or both of them. So it can be either of these two. It can be one or the other or both. But the first one is that their program is like too much for them, right? They try to do too much, right? You just started trying to working out. You just started, to work out, and you're trying to do 6 days a week, 1.5 hours in the gym each day. Like, you haven't even been consistent with like 3 days, right? Why are you putting so much on your plate, right? That's like trying to go to the max out on bench. It's your first day and you're just trying to put 225 on there, right? Like, you can't handle, like, put something light and then slowly work your way up. In the same way with your program, it should be the same thing. You should start off with something that you can do, that you know you can do, even if you're lazy. 3 days a week, 30 minutes each, right? You do that. Okay, this is getting super easy. Let me add in, let me make it 4 days, or let me make it 3 days and 40 minutes instead, or whatever it may be, right? Consistency, making sure that your program is like not too much for you. And then number two, why people aren't consistent is because of just their time management in general, right? You don't know how to manage your time. You don't know how to be productive and stuff like that. Like, you don't really have routine. It's not really that you're busy or anything like that, because everyone has a time. Everyone has time. Like, for example, if someone said, "Oh, I don't pray because I'm busy," like, I don't pray because I'm busy, you would say, "What the heck?" Like, no, you don't pray because you're busy. You just didn't make it a priority, right? Like, other things will go away, right? If you're busy, then you're still going to be praying, but you're just going to not be doing XYZ other stuff, right? But even these people who are subhanAllah busy, you're still scrolling, right? You're still scrolling, subhanAllah, right? So, number one is basically, like, you're trying to do too much. Trying to do too much. And then number two is that you don't know how to manage your time. And it can very well be both. A lot of people have both, because they're kind of quote unquote busy, and they think that they need to go to the gym like 1 hour every single day, but it can be literally like very little. I told you I started off with 5 minutes a day, right? Less than 5 minutes a day, right? So most people don't get results because of consistency, right? This is the main thing. And then also another thing, this is not as much as consistency, but shiny object syndrome. In terms of their goals, in terms of the workouts, the exercises, all this type of stuff, you're switching too often, right? Like, you have one goal, and then you switch your goal every, like, in the next 2 weeks, because you see some cool video online, right? You see you see a new workout plan, and you kind of try that one because you saw it on YouTube, right? On Instagram, right? Oh, new workout, whatever, all this type of stuff. You just switch things too much. But the thing is, when you switch your program to like often, what happens is you don't get results. You can't improve it's like you're trying to build a building, right? You get halfway and then you start building another building. And then you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. You're never going to be able to complete one whole building, right? You just have to you have to stay consistent with one building, and then go to the next, and then the next, and then the next, right? So that's the two main reasons. So consistency and the shiny object. Okay, and now I'm going to go over, inshallah, frequently asked questions. So, do you need a gym? Obviously, you don't need a gym. You just need your own body weight, and also, like, whatever equipment that you have at home, or whatever equipment you have near your house, using the most of it. Like, using whatever you can, basically, right? Okay, what if you don't even have a pull-up bar, though? Right? So, for people that don't have a pull-up bar, this is what I recommend. So, number one, try to find a place to do pull-ups, right? Because pull-ups are basically going to be the main only way that you're going to be able to strengthen your back and your biceps with your body weight, whatever, right? They're kind of the king of pulling strength. So I'd say try to find a park near you. A lot of times you can find a park with a pull-up bar, like monkey bars or whatever like that. Try to find some setup to find a pull-up. But if you can't, then I would say to just buy the pull-up bar, because honestly, really, just buy the pull-up bar. Because people talk about investments, invest in the best investments and stuff like that. Like, the best investment would be like some $20 bar that you can literally do pull-ups every single day and get super strong, get a lot more confidence and stuff like that, get a lot healthier and whatever. Just because for $20, bro, that's like a crazy investment, right? That's like the best investment for your own self and personal well-being and health, right? Find a way to, this is what I'll say, instead of trying to whine about, you don't have a pull-up bar or something like that, find a way to do it, right? Find a way to find a place to do it. Find a way to buy the thing. If you don't have money or whatever, get the money, bro. It's $20. It should be really cheap, right? Very easy to get a pull-up bar. Ask your parents, whatever. If you go to your dad and say, "Yo, Baba, can I get Baba, can you buy me a pull-up bar? I'm trying to actually do pull-ups and get stronger and whatever." Like, he's gonna look at you with respect, bro, right? He's gonna buy you another one, right? He's gonna buy you more than just that, right? If you go to him and say, "Yo, Baba," instead of scrolling, I want to focus on my strength. So buy a pull-up bar, find a place to do pull-ups, just find a way. Okay, this question about how to bulk as a Muslim, especially because of the hadith, one third, one third, one third. This is a really good one. And subhanAllah, I used to think about this myself. Because obviously it's clearly not encouraged to fill yourself up like crazy, because of the hadith. You should try to be more balanced and stuff like that in terms of, your portions, eat one third, one third drink, and then one third for the air. What I'll say is the best thing that I can recommend for, bulking, and also even cutting, this kind of goes for cutting too, but if you want to gain weight as a Muslim, right, and try to kind of not overeat and stuff like that, this is what I'll say. I would say that consistency actually matters more than the actual amount of food you're eating, the calories and stuff. I'll tell you, personally, before, I used to try to, I'm kind of the more skinny archetype, right? I had to gain the weight and the muscle, right? For me personally, I found that even when I was trying to just eat whatever and stuff like that, I wouldn't gain weight. But when I would eat the same thing every single day and try to eat a decent amount, that's when I actually gained weight, when I was consistent. And also what's important to also track your weight consistently, every single day in the morning, when you don't have water weight. For example, I'll show you right now, on my phone, I have a document where it shows, I don't know if you can see that. It will show all my, all of these are, let me get to the bottom. Sorry. These are all of my weights. I track my weight every single day, right? And so I can see, how much I weigh and stuff like that. And I'll see, the trends, right? Because it doesn't just go up like this. It's the stock market kind of, it goes like this and all that type of stuff, right? So number one, make sure you're tracking accurately. And number two, stay consistent with your diet. I think that's the most important thing with your protein and calories and stuff like that. And if you're consistent and you're tracking and you see the number going up, then obviously that's good. If it's going down or if it's staying the same, then you want to try to slightly increase it, right? And that's kind of how you really go. Same thing with cutting. Slowly, decrease, try to eat, consistently, less. Fasting is also really good. Obviously, a part of the sunnah, fasting Mondays and Thursdays and stuff like that. And yeah, just being consistent is the main important thing for trying to bulk. So my voice hurts from this. Okay, I already train. Do I even need this? I already train? Well, you want to ask yourself a couple questions. You might already train, yes, but, how is your training? What are you training? What are you doing in your training right now? What are your goals? And is your training getting yourself to your goals, right? Are you even staying consistent with your training, right? How consistent are you from 1 to 10, right? A lot of people say 6 out of 10, for example, right? If you're 6 out of 10, consistency, 6 out of 10 is 60%. If you got a 60% on your test, would you be satisfied, or would you be yo, I'm almost failing? 60% is failing in some grades, and sometimes it's almost passing or whatever, barely passing. 60%. If you're getting a 60% in your consistency, is that something that you want to keep, or is something you want to improve, right? How's your training going? All this type of stuff. If you're being consistent, is your routine, is your training, aligning with your life? Is it fitting in, or are you trying to have to fit your life around the training? Right? You want to ask yourself these questions, not just if I train already or not. You want to make sure that you're actually, getting proper results in terms of your actual goals, in terms of your training. And obviously, we said in the beginning that, we're training for the prophetic build, training to be like the Prophet in a more holistic, aspect, right? Our training is, one aspect of our life, not the whole thing. Okay, what if I'm busy right now? It's exam season, it's final season, whatever. Can I just start later or something like that? Let me start later. One thing I'll ask is, to anyone who says this, is, do you think that after exam season, you'll have any period in your life that you're gonna be busy, right? Obviously you're gonna be busy. You're gonna have more exams. You're gonna have even more work. Or you're gonna have a family or whatever. You're gonna have other stuff that you're not gonna just be a magical oh, I'm not gonna be busy anymore. There's no magical time like that. I'm sorry, that's just not how time works. The Prophet said, take your advantage of your time before your busyness, right? You're gonna become busy, subhanAllah, right? But if someone says oh, I've been just so busy right now. I haven't been praying. I'm not praying all 5. is that a proper excuse? You say like no, like if you really like, it's not that you don't have time. It's just you didn't make your salah like a priority, right? If you're busy, you would still be praying salah, but you cut out from something else, not from the salah. That just means you don't value the salah, right? You don't value your prayers, or you don't value your deen, right? In the same way, your health and your training. If you're not doing it right now, if you're not even a little bit, like, oh, and you'll do it later on, that means you just completely neglect it, right? SubhanAllah, no one in their right mind would say, oh, I'm not praying right now because I'm busy, right? In the same, because it's a non-negotiable. Same thing with your training and your health. If it really was a non-negotiable, and if you really did care about it, you'd be doing something right now. You'd still be eating healthy. You'd still be, going on walks and stuff like that. You'd still be running once a week. Sprinting once a week takes like, what, 10, 15 minutes, right? You're saying you don't have 10, 15 minutes every week, right? That just means that it's not a priority for you if it's that. And if it really is, then you would start right now, whenever you can. And also, even if you are busy, okay, how do I start if I'm busy, right? You would do something that you can handle, consistently. Remember I said I was talking about consistency right here, right? Consistency is the biggest trap, right? Doing something that you can stay consistent with, even if you're lazy, even if you're busy, right? That's the point of your training, subhanAllah. What if you only want to focus on muscle right now? Oh, I'm really small, I want to focus on muscle right now and stuff like that, so I don't care about the strength. Well, the question I want to ask you is, what are your long-term goals, right? Do you just want to be a big muscle blobhead, or do you want to have, that holistic build, like I said, of the prophetic build, right? You probably, want to train for the prophetic build, right? Long-term, you want to have the strength, the functional strength, alongside with the muscle, right? And so if you do want that, then the best way you can go about it is, focusing on the compounds. And when you focus on the compounds and have proper diet and nutrition and stuff like that, then you gain muscle and strength at the same time right now, right? And it's also in a proportional balance, right? Instead of very improportional, right? So the best way for you to gain muscle would still be, just focusing on the compounds and stuff like that. And lastly, how is this different from other types of training? I mean, you're saying basic exercises. Like, I've seen other people talk about sprinting. I've seen other people talk about, fighting. I've seen other people talk about pull-ups and weighted calisthenics and stuff like that. What's actually the difference, though? The difference is that this is focusing. The goal of this is balance. The goal of it is not the calisthenics or the fighting or the sprinting or whatever it is. The goal of it is balance, right? The Prophet ﷺ is described as a balance, like balance in physique and balance, even like all of the narrations I mentioned in the beginning of this guide, right? He was very balanced, subhanAllah, right? And so the goal of this program is to make sure that you're balanced and finding where you're imbalanced in your subhanAllah, your training, right? So that is how it is different, subhanAllah. Okay, and that is the end of the guide, subhanAllah. My voice literally hurts from recording this long, subhanAllah. But if you made it this, like, if you watch the entire thing, listen to the entire thing, then subhanAllah, like, I have massive respect for you. And actually, let me make a special dua for those who stuck to the end. May Allah Azza wa Jal allow you to, achieve your goals in both the dunya and the akhirah, and enter you into Jannatul Firdaus without any account and without any punishment, and shade you on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and make you of those who the Prophet ﷺ is proud of. Ameen. So there was a lot to unpack in this guide. I talked about a lot. It was almost an hour right now, and it's probably, I don't expect you to take every single thing and apply every single thing or whatever, because there's a lot of things to take into account. But subhanAllah, if you do want, in the link in the description, you can book on you can schedule a call with me, and I can basically go over your situation and apply the most important things in terms of this whole entire guide, and anything else that I didn't mention in the guide. I can go over your personal problems and your personal bottlenecks, and inshallah help you give you action steps for you to solve those, inshallah ta'ala. I think that's it. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you.